The Iron Grill was more than a restaurant. It was my empire, forged from my grandfather's stubborn Texas grit and my father's relentless hustle, a steakhouse that stood as a beacon in the heart of a city that never slept. It was a sweltering Thursday night in early August 2025, the kind of evening where the humidity wrapped around you like a wet blanket and the streets thrummed with restless energy. Inside, the grill was a living, breathing organism. Plates clattered, glasses clinked, and the sizzle of prime cuts on the open grill pulsed like a heartbeat. My staff moved with the precision of a seasoned orchestra, servers gliding through packed tables with trays of Wagyu sliders and truffle fries, bartenders flipping bottles like they were born for the stage, and the kitchen churning out dishes that had earned us a cult following. At 35, I've been the owner for a decade, ever since my dad handed me the keys and traded his apron for a fishing rod in Montana. The grill wasn't just my livelihood. It was my blood, my legacy, a testament to 3 generations of sacrifice. Tonight, we were slammed, every table claimed, the reservation list spilling into September, and a wait list that had influencers begging for a slot. That's when she stormed in, and the night took a turn I'd never forget. Her name, I'd later learn, was Vanessa Caldwell, but in that moment, she was just the woman in the scarlet dress that clung to her like a second skin, striding through my oak double doors like she was the queen of the city. She led a crew of 5, 3 women and 2 men, all in their mid-20s, dressed like they'd stepped out of a glossy magazine shoot. Vanessa's stiletto heels clicked on the polished hardwood, her blonde hair cascading in perfect waves, and her voice sliced through the restaurant's hum like a knife. "This is the spot, guys," she declared to her entourage, who followed her like loyal subjects. "I told you, I know the owner, and we're getting the chef's table tonight, no question." My hostess, Maria, a veteran with a steel spine and a knack for sniffing out trouble, barely got out a good evening before Vanessa cut her off. "We need the chef's table, the one by the window. 6 of us. No reservation, but it's fine. I'm besties with Jake." I was at the host stand, scrolling through the reservation list on my tablet, when her words hit me like a rogue wave. Maria shot me a glance, her eyebrow arched just enough to say, "Here we go." I stepped in, smoothing my black button down and flashing a smile that hid the storm brewing inside. "Good evening, folks. I'm sorry, but the chef's table is booked solid tonight, and we're at capacity. Can I get the name on your reservation, or would you like to wait at the bar?" Vanessa's eyes locked onto mine, sizing me up like I was a minor inconvenience she could swat away. "You're not listening," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "I don't need a reservation. Jake, the owner, always keeps a table for VIPs like me. Just run it by him, and we'll be fine." Her friends nodded, their faces a mix of blind faith and smug entitlement, like they were in on some exclusive secret. "Here's the truth. I'm Jake Sullivan. I'm the guy who signs the checks, curates the wine list, and occasionally mops the floor when we're down a busser. I've never met this woman in my life, never heard her name, never even seen her face in the crowd of regulars who pack my place nightly. But something about her brazen confidence, the way her crew hung on her every lie like it was gospel, made me pause. I could have shut it down right there, said, "Lady, I'm Jake, and you're full of it." But that's too easy. I grew up in this business, watching my dad handle hustlers with a grin and a plan, and I'd learned a thing or two about playing the long game. I decided to let her think she was winning for now. "Of course, ma'am," I said, my voice smooth as aged bourbon. "Let me check with the owner. In the meantime, why don't you and your friends grab a drink at the bar? First round's on me." Vanessa smirked, tossing her hair like she'd just sealed a corporate merger. "See? Told you I'd handle it," she said to her friends, leading them to the bar like a general marching her troops. They immediately started ordering top-shelf martinis, laughing too loud and snapping selfies with the grill's neon sign, a stylized steer's head that had become an Instagram staple. I slipped into the back, pretending to make a call, but really I was watching them through the kitchen pass, my mind already spinning. One of the guys, a dude in a shiny blazer that looked like it cost more than my first car, was griping about the wait. "This better be worth it, Ness," he said, swirling his drink. "You said we'd be treated like royalty." Vanessa waved him off, her voice carrying. "Relax, Chad. Jake's got us. He owes me big time." I nearly laughed out loud. Owes her? For what? Existing in my orbit? I decided then and there. Vanessa was about to get a night she'd never forget, and I was going to be the one to serve it up. The grill was a whirlwind now, a symphony of clattering plates, popping corks, and the low hum of 100 conversations weaving together. My staff was in the zone, servers gliding through the chaos with trays of lobster mac and dry-aged ribeyes, bartenders tossing bottles like they were auditioning for a Vegas residency, and the kitchen firing on all cylinders, plating dishes that had food bloggers calling us a culinary revelation. I told Maria to keep an eye on Vanessa's group while I plotted my next move. Part of me wanted to kick them out. Nobody threatens my team or tries to scam their way into my restaurant without consequences. But another part, the part that grew up watching my dad outsmart entitled customers with a wink and a strategy, wanted to teach her a lesson she'd be recounting for years, maybe decades. I decided to give her what she wanted, but on my terms, with a twist she'd never see coming. I approached the bar, where Vanessa was holding court, her voice cutting through the crowd like a spotlight. "I'm telling you, this place is elite," she said, gesturing with her martini glass, the olive bobbing precariously. "Jake and I go way back. He's probably in the back right now, making sure our table's perfect, maybe even picking out a special bottle for us." Her friends ate it up, their eyes wide like she was dropping insider secrets about a secret society. I cleared my throat, keeping my expression neutral. "Good news, ma'am. The owner says we can make an exception for you tonight. The chef's table just opened up. Follow me." Vanessa's face lit up, and she shot her friends a triumphant look that screamed, "I told you so." "See? I always come through," she said, strutting toward the table like she was walking a catwalk, her crew trailing behind, whispering excitedly about how insane this was going to be. The chef's table was our crown jewel, a sleek setup by the floor-to-ceiling window with a panoramic view of the city skyline, its lights twinkling like a constellation against the night. It's where we seat actual VIPs, local musicians, pro athletes, the occasional tech mogul blowing through town with an entourage. Tonight, it was Vanessa's, and I was going to make sure she felt every inch of the privilege she'd lied to claim. I handed them menus, the special ones we reserved for the chef's table, with no prices listed and dishes that screamed decadence. Wagyu beef tartare crowned with gold leaf, truffle-crusted scallops flown in from Maine, a $300 per ounce caviar service sourced from the Caspian Sea. "I'll be your server tonight," I said, pouring on the charm like it was a vintage Bordeaux. "We'll need a credit card and ID to hold for the table. Just our policy for VIPs. And the first 2 rounds of drinks are on the house." Vanessa didn't hesitate, tossing me her platinum Amex with a flourish that suggested she'd done this 1,000 times. "It's all on me tonight, guys," she announced, and her friends cheered like she'd just bought them a private jet. I pocketed the card and ID, already envisioning the bill I was about to orchestrate. They started ordering like they were at a Vegas buffet, not a fine dining steakhouse where every dish was a work of art. Cocktails with edible gold flakes, appetizers that cost more than a month's rent in the suburbs, and entrees that could fund a startup seed round. I kept their glasses full, nudging them toward another round every time they slowed down, my smile never wavering. "You folks are living the dream tonight," I said, refilling Vanessa's martini with a flourish. "Anything else I can get you?" One of the women, a brunette with a laugh that grated like nails on a chalkboard, leaned in, her eyes glassy from a booze. "You're so sweet for a waiter. Do you ever get tired of, serving people all day? Must be so exhausting." Her tone was pure patronizing pity, like she was talking to a stray dog. I smiled, my jaw tight enough to crack a walnut. "Not all, ma'am. I love making sure folks have a night they'll never forget." Inside, I was seething. These people thought they were above everyone in the room, including me, and I was about to show them just how wrong they were. The food started rolling out, each plate a masterpiece that had taken years to perfect. Vanessa barely touched her $200 lobster risotto, too busy posing for photos with her fork poised dramatically. Chad, the shiny blazer guy, complained that his $100 dry-aged ribeye wasn't rare enough, even though he'd scarfed down 3/4 of it like a starving wolf. The other guy, a quiet type in a polo who seemed like he'd rather be anywhere else, kept muttering about how he could have grilled this better at home. I nodded, apologized, and offered more drinks, knowing they were too tipsy to notice the prices piling up like a house of cards. By the time the entrees hit the table, they were 3 sheets to the wind, slurring their words and laughing so loud that nearby tables started shooting annoyed glances. I overheard Vanessa bragging about how she'd handled me how I was eating out of her hand like a trained puppy. Her brunette friend cackled. God, imagine being stuck waiting tables your whole life. So sad, right? That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a lesson for Vanessa. It was for her whole crew, and I was going to make it sting. The night was hitting its peak, the restaurant a controlled chaos of activity. My staff was in the zone, handling the madness like the pros they were. Servers weaving through the crowd with trays of seared scallops and bone-in fillets, bartenders slinging cocktails like they were born for it, and the kitchen firing on all cylinders. Every plate a testament to why we'd been named the city's top steakhouse 3 years running. But my focus was locked on Vanessa's table, where the vibe had shifted from cocky to sloppy. They'd polished off 5 rounds of drinks, only 2 of which were comped, and their plates were a graveyard of half-eaten dishes they'd raved about for their social media stories, but barely tasted. I've been checking in regularly, playing the perfect server, but every snide comment they tossed my way was like gasoline on a fire. These weren't just entitled. They were mean, the kind of people who'd spit in your coffee and laugh about it. I decided it was time to turn the screws. How about a dessert tasting? I suggested, sliding a dessert menu onto the table with a flourish. It's a chef's special, only for our VIPs. Pairs perfectly with our reserved dessert wines. Vanessa, her mascara smudged and her posture slumping like a deflated balloon, waved a hand dismissively. Sure, whatever. Bring it all. Make it quick. Her friends cheered, oblivious to the fact that the tasting was a $700 per person spread, and the wine started at $300 a glass. I signaled the kitchen, and out came a parade of desserts that could have graced the cover of a gourmet magazine. Gold leaf panna cotta that shimmered under the lights, chocolate truffle towers studded with edible diamonds, a tableside flambé that drew gasps from nearby tables, and a round of applause from a group of regulars. The wine flowed, and I made sure to describe each pour in excruciating detail, knowing they were too drunk to care. This is a 2015 Chateau d'Yquem, I said, pouring a golden liquid into Vanessa's glass. Notes of apricot, saffron, and a hint of honeycomb. Exquisite with the truffle tower. She nodded vaguely, already scrolling her phone, probably drafting a post about how #iconic her night was. As the night wore on, I started to second-guess myself, just for a moment. Was I going too far? These are just a bunch of spoiled 20-somethings, probably raised on trust funds and TikTok fame, clueless about the real world. Maybe Vanessa was just trying to impress her friends, and I was about to hit her with a bill that'd send her into a financial tailspin. But then I caught Chad, leaning back in his chair like he owned the place, saying, "This guy's such a loser. Bet he's never even left this podunk town." The brunette chimed in, her voice dripping with venom. "Yeah, Ness, you should totally get him fired. Show him who's in charge." Vanessa laughed, sharp and cruel. "Oh, don't worry. I'll talk to Jake. This waiter's done for." Any flicker of guilt I had went up in flames. They want to play dirty? I'd give them a game they'd be paying off for years. I printed the bill, a crisp sheet of paper that looked innocent enough, but carried a total of $11,287.63, including tax and a mandatory 20% gratuity for parties of 6 or more. I slipped it into a leather folder and approached the table, my heart pounding with a mix of adrenaline and righteous glee. "Here's your check, folks," I said, placing it in front of Vanessa with a polite nod. She was mid-laugh, but her face froze when she opened the folder, her eyes scanning the numbers like they were written in a foreign language. This can't be right," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Her friends leaned in, their drunken giggles fading as they saw the total. "Il est $22,000," Chad roared, slamming his fist on the table hard enough to rattle the glassware. "Are you freaking kidding me?" I kept my expression neutral, my voice calm as a still lake. "Is there an issue with the bill, ma'am? I can go over it with you line by line." Vanessa's hands trembled as she flipped through the itemized list, her friends muttering in disbelief, their faces a mix of shock and dawning panic. "You charged us for everything," she snapped, her voice rising to a pitch that turned heads. "The drinks were supposed to be free." I nodded, unruffled. "The first 2 rounds were complimentary, as promised. The other 3, plus the dessert wines, are listed here. And the chef's table menu doesn't include prices, as is standard for VIPs." Her face turned a shade of red that clashed with her dress, and she slammed the folder shut. "This is a scam. I'm not paying this." I want to speak to Jake right now. The restaurant was winding down now, the last few tables lingering over espresso martinis and creme brulee, their conversations a soft murmur against the clinking of silverware. Vanessa's table, though, was a powder keg ready to blow. Her friends were in full meltdown mode, digging through purses and wallets, pulling out crumpled bills and cards like they were scavenging for survival. Vanessa glared at me, her eyes blazing with a mix of fury and desperation. "Give me the owner," she repeated, her voice shaking with rage. "You're trying to rip us off, and I'm not falling for it. Jake will have your job for this, you little nobody." Her friends nodded, though their conviction was crumbling, like they were starting to suspect Vanessa's connection was a sandcastle about to be washed away. I leaned in slightly, my voice low but sharp enough to cut through her bravado. "Ma'am, I'd be happy to get the owner, but first, let's confirm everything on the bill. You ordered the wagyu tartare, the truffle scallops, the caviar service, 5 rounds of cocktails, the dessert tasting, and 6 glasses of reserve wine. Is anything incorrect?" She opened her mouth, then closed it, realizing she was backed into a corner with no escape. The brunette piped up, her voice shrill and panicked. "This is insane. Who charges $700 for dessert? This is robbery." I shrugged, cool as a cucumber. "It's a chef special, ma'am. You approved every order, and I made sure you had the VIP experience you demanded." Vanessa's eyes darted to her phone, and I saw her open her texts, scrolling frantically, her fingers shaking. "I'm texting Jake right now," she said, typing like her life depended on it. "He's going to fix this, and you're going to be out on the street." I almost felt a twinge of pity for her, almost. But then I remembered her threatening Maria, mocking my staff, and treating me like dirt because she thought I was just a waiter. I decided it was time to end the charade and bring the hammer down. "You know what?" I said, straightening up, my voice steady and commanding. "Let's call Jake. Right now." I pulled out my phone, dialed my own number, and put it on speaker, letting the room hear every word. My voicemail kicked in, clear and unmistakable. "You've reached Jake Sullivan, owner of the Iron Grill. Leave a message." Vanessa's face went ghost white, her jaw dropping like a trapdoor. Her friends exchanged looks, the truth hitting them like a freight train. "Wait," Chad said, his voice cracking. You're the owner?" I smiled, letting the moment sink in like a perfectly seared fillet. "That's right. I am Jake. And I've never met you before tonight, Vanessa. You walked into my restaurant, lied about knowing me, threatened my staff, and insulted everyone here, thinking you could bully your way to a free ride. But I gave you what you wanted, the best table, the best food, the full VIP treatment. And now, you're going to pay for it." The table fell silent, the air heavy with shock and humiliation. Vanessa tried to speak, but her voice cracked, tears welling up in her eyes. Her friends stared at her, some furious, some mortified, their loyalty unraveling. The brunette whispered, "Ness, you said you knew him. What the hell?" Vanessa's bravado collapsed like a house of cards in a windstorm. I thought," she stammered, her voice breaking as tears spilled down her cheeks. "I didn't mean," I held up a hand, cutting her off before she could dig herself deeper. "Save it. You've got 2 options. Pay the bill, or I call the cops and hand over your ID and credit card for fraud. Your choice, but I'd choose quickly." She stared at the bill, then at her friends, who were already pulling out cash and cards to chip in, their faces a mix of resentment and panic. "We'll help," the quiet guy said, shooting Vanessa a look that could have melted steel. They scraped together what they could, hundreds in cash, a few cards for smaller amounts. But Vanessa's Amex took the brunt of it, the machine beeping as it processed the massive charge. She signed a receipt with a trembling hand, tears streaming down her face, her makeup a smeared mess. They slunk out of the restaurant like scolded children, not a single word between them, the weight of their humiliation hanging like a cloud. The next morning, I was in my office, still buzzing from the night before, the adrenaline lingering like a good bourbon. The bill, all $11,287.63 of it, was framed on my desk, a trophy of justice served, its edges crisp against the sleek black frame. My staff had been buzzing about it all night, and Maria had already dubbed it the Vanessa Apocalypse, a name that was sticking like glue. I was sifting through invoices, trying to focus on the mundane tasks of running a restaurant, when my phone rang. a local number I didn't recognize. Jake Sullivan, I answered, leaning back in my leather chair, bracing for whatever was coming. A man's voice came through, gruff and dripping with indignation. This is Richard Caldwell, Vanessa's father. I need to talk to you about last night, and I mean now. I stifled a sigh, sensing round two of the drama. Sure thing, Mr. Caldwell. Come by the restaurant. I'm here all day. An hour later, he stormed in, a middle-aged man in a navy polo and khakis, his face red with anger, with Vanessa trailing behind him, her head bowed and her eyes puffy from crying. She looked like a kid who'd been grounded for life, not the queen bee who tried to scam my restaurant into submission. I led them to my office, a cozy space lined with framed reviews and photos of my grandparents cutting the ribbon on the grill's opening day in 1978. I closed the door and gestured for them to sit, keeping my expression neutral. What's this about? I asked, though I knew exactly what was coming. Richard launched into a tirade, his voice booming as he called the bill extortion, threatened to sue, to call the Better Business Bureau, to blast us on every review site from Yelp to X, and even to go to the press with his story of predatory business practices. I let him vent, his face getting redder by the second, while Vanessa sat silent, staring at her hands like they held the answers to her problems. When he finally paused to catch his breath, I leaned forward, my voice calm but laced with steel. Mr. Caldwell, let me show you something before we go any further. I pulled up the security footage from the chef's table. High-def video with crystal-clear audio, a precaution we'd installed after a drunk guest trashed a $6,000 chandelier a few years back. I played the highlights, each clip a damning piece of evidence. Vanessa's lies about knowing me, her threats to Maria at the host stand, her friends' insults about my pathetic life as a waiter, and their reckless ordering like they were at a no-limits casino. Richard's face went from red to pale as he watched, his jaw tightening until I thought it might crack. Vanessa sank lower in her chair, her hands twisting in her lap, her breath shallow and shaky. The footage captured every ugly moment. Chad's loser comment, the brunette's cackle about getting me fired, Vanessa's smug, I'll talk to Jake line, and even a moment where she told her friends, we can do whatever we want here. This guy's a nobody. It was a masterclass in entitlement, laid bare for her father to see. When the video ended, I leaned back, letting the silence hang heavy. Your daughter lied to get a table, disrespected my staff, and racked up a bill she couldn't handle. I gave her every chance to back off, but she doubled down, insulted my team, and treated this place like her personal playground. The bill's paid, and I've got no interest in dragging this out. But if you want to talk lawsuits or bad press, I've got this footage, a dozen witnesses, and a signed receipt with her name on it. Richard stared at the floor, his hands clenched into fists, then looked at Vanessa, his voice low and furious. Is this true, Vanessa? Did you do this? She nodded, her voice barely audible, a choked whisper. Yes, Dad. He stood, grabbing her arm with a grip that suggested he was done with her excuses. We're done here, he said, his voice trembling with rage, and stormed out, yelling at her all the way to the parking lot. Il est 22 dollars, Vanessa. You humiliated me, your mother, and yourself. For what? A night of acting like a spoiled brat. I watched them go, the door swinging shut with a soft thud, and felt a weight lift off my shoulders, the air in my office suddenly lighter. Looking back, I don't regret a single move I made that night. The Iron Grill is my life, my family's legacy, a monument to decades of hard work and sacrifice, and I'll protect it with every fiber of my being. Vanessa and her crew thought they could waltz in, throw their weight around, and walk away unscathed, leaving a trail of insults and lies in their wake. They learned the hard way. Actions have consequences, and I'm not the guy you scam, not in my house. My staff still laughs about it. And the frame bill has become a legend among the crew, a reminder that we don't bow to bullies, no matter how loud they shout or how shiny their credit cards are. Sure, I could have kicked them out at the start or comped the table to avoid the drama, but that's not justice. That's letting entitlement win, and I wasn't raised to let people like Vanessa walk over me or my team. The grill's busier than ever now, with reservations booked out through November and a wait list for our holiday events that's got foodies and influencers clamoring for a spot. Every so often, a guest will spot the framed receipt on my desk and ask for the story, their eyes wide with curiosity. I'll give them the short version, leaving out the juiciest bits, and they'll laugh, shake their head, and say something like, "People are wild these days." And they are wild, entitled, and sometimes downright cruel. But this place isn't just about steak and wine, about perfectly seared fillets or cocktails that cost more than a tank of gas. It's about respect for the food, for the staff who pour their hearts into every shift, for the grind that keeps this machine running day after day. As for Vanessa, I hope she's learned something, maybe even grown a little, taken a long look in a mirror and seen the person she doesn't want to be. But honestly, I'm just glad she's not my problem anymore. The iron grill keeps sizzling, the city keeps humming, and I've got a restaurant to run, one plate, one guest, one night at a time. What a wild story. What do you think about how it all went down? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more epic tales.